right, let's see if we are up and running. We're going to do some adventure design today for Ravnica Rebel Belt hex crawling. So I'm going to check and see if I am. I'm showing a loading screen, like a standby screen for YouTube here. So I'm going to take this opportunity to start loading out all the social media feed stuff that I do. I'm going to take a second here to refresh to see if this has come alive. And looks like we are still waiting, which is just fine with me. I'm going to skip on ahead. It looks like I'm having a little bit of shaky internet. I might have some latency issues. So we'll see how stuff comes through when it does. Still waiting for a confirmation that we're actually up and running at this point. And hey, great, we're live. So mic check, 1, 2, 3, checking in to see if hey, great, we're live. So mic check, 1, 2, 3, checking in to see. All right, sounds like I'm coming through. Okay, I'm going to finish doing my social media burst here, and then we'll get up and running. So while I do that, let me give you my background story. Hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games. I illustrate them. I publish them online. I've been running D&D games since '87. I've been creating content on DMsGuild for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons since 2017. That's when the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica came out. That was the first crossover publication that Wizards of the Coast had done, mixing Magic the Gathering in with the 5e game mechanics. And I think the majority of people had thought that we would see some sort of color mana system for 5th edition. For 5th edition, but we've discovered since then that the philosophy of Wizards of the Coast in 5th edition is keep the core mechanics as rules as written as possible. In any campaign that we develop, we will diffuse the mechanics and the flavor of whatever IP we're picking up, and we will filter it down so that it complies with what already exists inside of the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual. So instead of having a robust color language with mana, they instead took the settings of Ravnica, Strixhaven, and Theros and converted it to using the 8 schools of magic and the spell slots that you expect from a normal D&D game. So you're still playing D&D rules as written in a different setting. And while I respect that decision, and it certainly helps keep the audience unified and allowing more people to make use of more content, and these campaign ideas are just that, they're ideas that you can infuse into your 5e game. Us MTG enthusiasts, I think we're really hoping to have some sort of color something going on. So when that didn't happen, blokes like myself created the color mana spell point variant rules. This is basically a system that replaces the 8 schools of magic and the spell slot system of Vancian magic, and replaced it with a mana pool and the five colors of magic from MTG. These books, there's actually a link to all these. Hey, like and subscribe, bell icon, blah de blah. Thanks for subscribers. Here is the full MTG list of books that we've created so far. So you can check all of these books out in your own time as you please. But the theme for today is to further develop the land crawl system that we have. So we've been playtesting a martial powers system, which basically creates an alternate magic system that martial characters can use. If you want to check it out, we're gonna have a playtest starting up on the 29th, which is Monday. Later on this month, we're going to have our session 0, where we're building characters and walking through mechanics to make sure everyone is on page. And then the first playtest would, I think, be Monday. I think that's the 5th. I think that's the date. So check that stuff out. Also, if you're on the Twitter platform, I'm on X Twitter at Phil Kearney. You can tag along there if you're interested. Check out some of my work here on DMsGuild. And like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. So back into it. Here's the full playtest where we're at right now. Hey guys. And here is the actual martial powered playtest content on Patreon. If you click on the YouTube stream here, that'll take you right here, right now. Martial powers, if you click on that, it will lead you to the same document that I'm looking at over here. If for you, it'll be a read-only document. For me, I can edit it. You're currently signed in as Phil Kearney. Yes, I am. Hello. Let's see. Here we go. Martial powers. This is the martial power system here. We've gone over this, how many episodes? A couple hundred episodes at this point. So we're pretty far into it. That's my 20-minute timer. So I've got about an hour from now before we're done. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., which is going to be 19 hours from now. We'll be back on, and we'll be building stuff out for a few hours tomorrow morning, so you can catch up there. But this is an alternate magic system that uses basically half casting progression for artificers, barbarians, fighters, monks, paladins, rangers, and rogues, as well as warlocks, to have options other than spell casting to use the same mana resource either on a short rest or a long rest to refresh. Like the monk and the warlock have the same short rest mana mechanics for pack magic and key or focus, and the barbarian, the rogue, and the fighter also uses that same short rest progression, and then the artificer, paladin, and ranger all use the same long rest half casting progression. We gain new ranks of power at 1st, 5th, 9th, 13th, and 17th level. We have a power die that can deal when you throw down mana. If you're modifying a d20 die roll, however much mana you throw is how many dice you roll. And for ability checks and attack rolls and armor class saving throws, d20 die mechanics, you take the best result and keep that to modify your die roll. If you're dealing damage, then it would be roll all the dice together and add that to whatever damage it is that you're dealing. So like a smite, like a shocking strike, three mana channeled into a shocking strike attack would deal an extra 3d8 damage at 9th level, plus the kicker effect, which is you can't take opportunity attacks until the end of your next round. So we've gone over a lot of mechanics in our time, and this is this full document here now will eventually be published on DMsGuild along with all the other mana books that we have. But the real treasure that we're playing with today is at the end of the book, where we have monsters that we're going to come back and revisit once we get into it. But this, we have sample playtest characters that also need to be updated with mechanical changes that we've made. So these will eventually be added to the back of the book as just like sample characters, different classes, different levels. Mess around, just find out. But here's the meat and taters of what we're dealing with today: the Rubble Belt playtest design. This could also this is themed around the Ravnica campaign setting. For those that aren't intimately familiar with the Ravnica setting, the whole world is covered in one sprawling city that's been built upon layer upon layer upon layer until the point where there's no natural earth showing, and there's about a mile worth of city from sky to ground. Most of that is like super compressed, crushed down structure that is basically fused into a I think that's like a shoal. What is the? I want to keep saying shale, but it's a type of stone that gets created when material gets compressed down like concrete, like a pressing effect. So the buildings eventually get pressed down, and the caverns and spaces that stay inside of there become its own sort of underdark that used to be people's apartments and buildings and civic centers and stuff that just been buried over the centuries. So there's these worms. They're called world worms. They could be up to a half mile in diameter and 20 miles long. And they are in there in the planet's mantle, crawling around, and occasionally they come up to the surface for a bit, like mating season perhaps, or whatever their inspiration is to surface, they do. And when they do, they destroy potentially hundreds of miles worth of city because they're half a mile in diameter and 20 miles long. They just like dune sandworms, but like up to 11. Just create these massive belts of ruin or rubble, hence rubble belts. And it takes hundreds, if not thousands of years to recover these rubble belts. They're just scars that take forever to rebuild the infrastructure and repopulate with an urbanized culture. So during those decades or centuries of neglect, the natural green forces of the planet grow grass, and then forests and little rivers and ponds form, and it recreates nature, basically a veneer covering over the ruins of this urban structure. So when you're doing a hex crawl through a rubble belt area, you're basically looking at astroturf nature. All you have to do is dig down like 20 feet and you start finding ruined structures that could have all sorts of artifacts, information, like enchantments and magical effects, as well as a huge array of different type of Underdark creatures, or just creatures that have adapted to being underground. So that's what the theme of the campaign is, that you're flying from one part of the world to the other. Your ship gets busted. You crash land in a rubble belt swamp. And now you and a bunch of NPCs that you're protecting as a caravan in a sort of expanded escort mission are guiding these NPCs through the rubble belt to try to either find your way out, which could be hundreds of miles of trekking, or find some means, some forgotten artifacts or enchantments that would allow you to broadcast a rescue signal or a cry for help, that eventually somebody might be able to fly in and rescue you all from this hostile environment that's gone completely rogue. It's overrun by Gruul cultists. The Gruul clans are supreme out here. There's Gruul, and there's ungilded sentient creatures, and then there's just monsters. There's rogue enchantments. There's artifact creatures that have no masters, that have just basically gone amok. And so when we're doing the Hexcrawl campaign, each one of these large squares is 30 miles. Each of these sub-squares is 10 miles. So as we zoom into miles of space, like looking in on this here, like this is a 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be, the team started here at playtest level 3, like in previous episodes. You can see we play tested level 3 and 4. The team moved out of the swamp and they had to pick 1, 2, or 3. We went with just blue on blue. This indicates it's elevated. This line indicates flat ground. And then depressions like this indicate sunken terrain. That sunken terrain could go down half a mile into the ground. The elevated terrain could go half a mile up into the sky. And then level ground is relatively level. There's the hex. In well, we're not using hexes here, we're using squares because I operate in squares. But the square, this tile that we're inside of, it's a blue themed tile in general. This is a red themed tile in general. This is a white themed tile in general, etc. And then each region inside the tile is a 10-mile block. And in this instance, for instance, the first tile they went to is in a blue region. It's a blue tile in a blue region inside of a blue tile, so it's blue on blue. And it has elevated surface, which means that there are things that are high elevation. And then we check our random table. We've been designing a randomizer to generate the color of the land, the color of the tile inside of the land, whether it's elevated or flat, or sunken terrain, based on which color it is that we pull. And then based on whether it's elevated, flat, or depressed area, we have it broken down by white elevated, white flat. Like you can see here, white is either elevated or flat. Blue is either elevated, flat, or sunken. Black is either flat or sunken. Red is either elevated or flat. And then green is either elevated, flat, or sunken. And you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 30 options across the 5 color lands of being either elevated, level, or sunken. And it's equal proportions. It's just going to lean thematically in towards one over another. So this allows us to create neat color options. Like this tile in this corner, the bottom right corner here, blue tile, red terrain, that's Izzet territory. So if we zoom out and like say we look at this map here, this is a representative 1, 2, 3, 4. If we zoom in here, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? This is a 20-mile block of 4 tiles that were 4 regions inside of this tile that we're looking at together. So then we can look over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the blue on blue. Here's a blue on blue. Here's blue on red, and we can see here bending into blue on black, right? Because we go over here, we look again at the tile, blue on blue, blue on blue, black on blue, red on blue. So again, we scale out. Here's the general topography for that 20-mile area. The team went into this region, secured this area. They made friends with a Sphinx that's doing Izzet research in the area and is looking for mox crystals to be able to generate more blue mana to perform experiments with. And it hired the team. It said it would basically give the team security, a place to rest, and safety while inside of this tile. So the team was able to advance their caravan from the swamp into this tile and rest safely. And then the team's next task is to choose a tile and then advance into the next territory. And because they're on their way, they're trying to find their way through a complex, through this land, to either find a way out or find a way to communicate. Since they have the Sphinx as an NPC ally back at quote-unquote home base, it could theoretically be possible that they could find some sort of, say, a transmitter, for instance. And if they could, then they could potentially take it to the Sphinx to get it fixed, so they get a transmitter up and running, so they could radio for help and send a new ship in to pick everyone out and extract themselves. The playtest is going to run from level 3, 4, and then 5, 6, and then 7, 8, then 9, 10. We're on playtest right now 5 and 6. So if there's a transponder somewhere inside of here, guess around when they're going to find that. Probably like around level 8 or 9. So that way when the playtest ends, they can find somebody to extract them. So taking that theme, anybody with this toolkit, anyone can build land tiles with threats, enchantments, hazards, traps, tricks, monsters, weather, environmental stuff. We have it all in the random generator here. And so as you advance from tile to tile, you can start carving out your hex crawl style campaign and let the storyline become, just evolve as your characters engage in the environment and make decisions about who they want to help or hurt, how they want to go about achieving their goals. In a true hex crawl fashion campaign, it's open without any pre-written like story involved. The story is emergent. It's an emergent story where, depending on what the team just decides to do, that's how the story comes to be. So when we last left off, the team had chosen to move from this white on blue tile, or this blue on blue tile, and then move into this other blue on blue tile that is catty corner here, and it's elevated. So when you have an elevated surface, we look on our map to see what is, we have a little guide over here. Blue on blue is going to be the ground. We already determined the ground is going to be Izzet. Izzet red using steam vents. So let's go to the blue elevated. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 terrains that we can choose from. So I'm going to roll a d6. I rolled a 2. So 1, 2, that's skyways. Collapsing bridges, which can have populations of piercers, assassin vines, and roper populations just naturally occurring in these skyways, as they are. Skyways are basically floating islands and skyscrapers that are connected to each other by these floating bridges in the sky. So we are going to continue that theme by establishing the sky is going to be skyways, white flat, blue elevated, falling damage, fighting traverse, skyways, collapsing bridges. And since it's up can be either white, blue, or red. So we're gonna roll a d6. 1, 2 is white, 1, 2 is white, 3, 4 is blue, 5, 6 is red. Oh, it could also be green. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right. So let me grab a D4 instead. And hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's roll a D10 instead. And on 1 to 4, it'll be white. 5 will be blue. 6 through 9 will be red, and then 10 will be green. And I rolled a 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So it's going to be a red tile. Red is up. Red. So we're going to go with... Oh, this is also Izzet red. That's awesome. Izzet red. Actually, if we're going to go with red, let's go look at an elevated red terrain. So, elevated red. And these are all land cards that we pulled from Magic the Gathering decks. So, red, elevated. We are in Izzet territory. So, we're looking at mountain factories, stacking houses, teetering peaks could be either one. So, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. There's a D3, so I'm going to roll D6 and divide by 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 additional dungeon layers, collapsing structures. Do I like that? I didn't have that indicated. That's right. We were on the ground. We're doing steam vents. So it's going to be hot water on the ground. Let's zoom out here for a second. What happened? Why do I have this like this? Because it's... bending into more blue with white over yonder. Maybe I do want to do blue elevated. Let's do that instead. Let's see what result we get there, because I might like it more. Skyway Cascade, Skyways, Aristocratic Community, Academic Ruins, Fairy, Conclave, and Floating Islands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just do it this way and see what happens. See if we come up with something more interesting. 1, 2, 3. Aristocratic Community. I like that better, actually. And Aristocratic Community could be... It could be white. It could be any of the 4, honestly. So let's Aristocratic Community kind of lends itself towards Orzhov, but it could also be Azorius, or it could be Simic. So I rolled Orzhov. So let's make it an Orzhov community. Let's see. Get out of here, Scallywag. Control Z. Aristocratic Community. That actually feels like the most fun to me. Let's go with Sky equals Orzhov. Black equals Aristocratic Community. I can change my own rules as I please. So what are the hazards that we have in Aristocratic Community? There's Sky Islands, first off. And these are going to be floating over the ground. They're elevated. They're connected with skyways, which makes sense because the previous tile had skyways as well. Zoom out here for a second so you can see the full burst of all this stuff. Let's conceal the overland movement. Let's move down into the first tile. So here's the original tile that we were dealing with. On the ground here, here's the ground. And here's raised elevation, here's raw swamp area of deep water, and then here's more elevated ground over here. Here is the Sky Islands that were floating around. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant floating islands in this 10-mile. Each of these squares is 1 mile, so this is a 10-mile region. And these were the 5 significant floating islands that were in that region. Now we're dealing with the caddy corner, and this was determined by, you can see here, it looks like this, which came off of this configuration table of different types of 5-room dungeon configurations, rooms and passageways that attach each of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll and build shapes for the second tile. So all this is pretty much randomized, and then we just start filling in. Once we have the bones and the structure of the thing built, we can start filling in the individual pieces. So I'm going to roll a d20 for the ground, and then I'm going to roll a d20 for the islands that are floating above to see what kind of configuration they are, and then we'll take it from there. So that's my timer. So for the ground, I rolled an 18, and then for the sky, I rolled a 10. 18 and 10. So let's take a look at what these configurations are going to look like. $18 looks like this. So the ground is going to be configured like this. Connection through points there, here. I don't know why I'm using that color. And I don't know why. Oh yeah, because of this morning. Let's get back on point. There. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bop, 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 bop. That is how 18 is built, and this is for the ground. So when we build our land tile, we're going to think that these are 5 points of interest, and these are easy pathways that can lead you from one point to the next. You'll be able to probably, since we're dealing with a flat surface underneath an elevated islands, we'll be able to have these points. You can traverse off grid, like you could go between, travel to point like that if you wanted to. But these lines here are going to be like the easier, more frequented paths of travel that are available. So if you go off the paths, you're going to increase your likelihood of dangerous traps, encounters, tricks, and rogue enchantments and stuff. And then we rolled a 10 for the Sky Islands, which looks like this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And all these things are connected in damn near every way you can think to do so. Lots of connection between... Ooh, wow. It's even more complicated than that. Here. Like that. It's like a kite. That is a lot of connection. Oh, I kind of like that. Hold on. Free transform. Bum, 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 bum. If I rotate it over, this could be a 3-dimensional model. So overhead, it also looks like this, but there's another level even further up that you can lead up to. That's interesting. I like that. And then that sits over this structure. So there's a lot of alignment. It's feeling like it would be like here's our ground, and then here's the islands that float above it, and then above all of that is a very heightened location. So it'd be like that, and then there'd be connectors like this to the ground. Oh, neat. Huh. And this is an aristocratic community. So this would be like ultra elites. This would be upper echelon, and then this is steam vents and stuff at the low end for industry work. Interesting. Okay, so let's take this out another degree as we continue thinking our way through this process. Next thing we're going to do is let's build out a 10 by 10 grid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Free transform. Bump, 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 bump. There. We'll merge these two down. So this is our environment, our grid. And now we want to start, we'll want to have, so we'll go with, we're going to go with red for the ground, and then we're going to have white for Orzhov. So let's see. It's blue on blue. The ground goes as that. The sky. Feels like it's blue on blue. If it's blue, it can't be blue blue. It could be sky blue. Isn't going. It could be. I did it wrong. It would not be. It would not be Orzhov. Although that kind of makes sense. Since it's blue in the sky, it has to be one of the 4 blue-based guilds. So it can't be Orzhov because it's not a white tile. I screwed that up. So let's go with. It's blue, so yeah, it's going to be Simic. Simic green, but it can still be an aristocratic community. It's just going to be high-end Simic people. So instead of being cathedrals and banks and stuff, it would be like sky perches and yeah, sky perches, like P-E-R-C-H-E-S, not like purchase as in a transaction. No. So is that steam vents? Let's check out what the terrain trouble for steam vents is. Blue flats, steam vents. Erupting pipe geysers and corrosive oozes. That's interesting. These are hazards. And then creatures. Figure out the creatures and then enchantments. There. So we'll figure those things out. Let's go down to, let's explore that space. Get past all the land tile stuff, tile procedures, challenges, monsters. Here we go, monsters. We already have Outcast Artificer and Magman determined for the red area. Magman, and then the boss, dungeon bosses for Izzet. We have Outcast Artificer. So the boss for the Simic elevated terrain is going to be a D4 as well. So let's roll a D4 on that and see what kind of a boss we get. Number 1 is an insane, a Forgotten Crisis Experiment. boss equals Krasis. Minions equals boss equals minions equals. So when you have two types of terrain, and elevated is distinct in that you can have one type of terrain that's literally floating over the other, like these sky islands floating above the heated swamp. Basically, it's not quite a swamp; it's steam vents. It's got too much stuff being breathed into it for it to be a murky death swamp, a rot swamp. So it's more of like what's the word I'm looking for? Hot springs. It's more like hot springs than anything else. So it's more vibrant and healing and lifeful. So that's useful. But when you have these two environments inside the same tile, you do it for both the elevated region and then the ground region. And these two will each have their own mini boss and their own supply of minions. And then there's just going to be general hazards that you have to deal with. And then there'll be enchantments. And then there could just be random stuff that moves between the two of them or operates at one level or another. And this becomes a mash of, we then figure out what's the boss's goals for each of these communities, and is there any conflict between them, and how does that interact with the hex, the tile that we were in previously already. Hey, we got a visitor. What's up, Cathartic? So glad you're making this video. Thanks. I'm working right now, but we'll catch a full replay. Well, hell yeah, man. Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Happy to have you on board. Thanks a lot. But, yeah. Just stumbling around. I want to perch up on my seat. So, yeah, thanks for swinging by. Drop into my Discord channel. I'll have a link to my Discord in the description down below when I finish the stream. And it's also in the About page of my Patreon. So if you aren't already, anyone that's interested is welcome to drop in. So we have the minions. We're going to go back up here and look at no, we're looking for the sky is going to be, I think I'm going to put this on top. Sky above, ground below. Let's do that. But this also works for Strixhaven in the outlands outside of the college, and the Tarns and the gnarls, the land gnarls. You can do this. We'd have to reflavor some of the Izzet and stuff like that to weave more into the flavors of Strixhaven, or you could just leave it with the Ravnica dualities as your theme, and then have Strixhaven dropped into the middle of it. So, but then you'd have issues like Boros stadiums and stuff like. Well, we'd have to rebuild it so that it's more random. That it is more Fey, wildlands, undeveloped. All this stuff is urban sprawl that's in decay. So it has a very different flavor. But we could build a similar land crawl system for Strixhaven Outlands as well. Speaking of the Outlands, in Planescape, we could also use the color mana system to build out surrounding territories in the neutral Outlands, where Sigil is located. That is in the hub between all of the different planes of existence, and we could use color biasing off of the planar grid that we created using colors as the guiding philosophies that formed each, like Mechanist, for instance, is Azorius with white and blue, while Bator is white and black. So and Pandemonium is red, for instance. Like Limbo is pure red, while the Abyss is black and red. Stuff like that. So we could get into that, but for now, I'm starting to look at that's scope sprawl already. So let's stay on point. Moving into the, let's see, I'm looking for, those are dungeon bosses. Now I just want monsters, and we're looking at red monsters. Now we're looking at green. So we're looking at the elevated region, which is Simic. It's Simic elevated. We have a Krasis creature, which will probably be like a flying monster thing. And it might not be intelligent. It's just the toughest thing in the region. So over in the last land crawl in Area 3 and 4, it was an Orzhov top, but the boss ended up being a Sphinx. So the Sphinx is highly intelligent, so we had to integrate what its goals in the territory would be to affect the narrative that's going on. So minions is a d10, so let's roll a d10. And I rolled a 6. So what is a 6? Let's see if I like it. 6 is Carrion Crawler. Fascinating that there would be carrion crawlers in the sky, in the floating islands. Wouldn't they occasionally just fall off? That's kind of creepy. Okay, I guess let's just keep that. Let's keep that. Okay, hold on. It's also blue, so we can cheat our way in and we can find something that's different. So let's look at blue and roll 1 to 10 for that. I rolled a 10. So that's a Krull, which is also Krasis. Krulls are basically Krasis. So Carrion Crawler, Krull. Okay, we'll go with that. Carrion Crawlers and Krull. And let's add another type of minions for the artificer. So we'll go with minions as a D10. We already have Magmen, and we're potentially adding Goblinkin, or looking at blue as a 9 would be Invisible Stalker. Magmen and Invisible Stalker. So now this terrain has on the ground Magmen coming up out of the steam vents, Invisible Stalkers just creeping across the land, and the outcast the Azet outcast artificer is somehow interacting with the Magmen and or the Invisible Stalkers. And then up in the Sky Islands, there is the flying monstrous Krasis, along with its there's a population of Krull, and then carrion crawlers as well. So maybe the carrion crawlers are in the interior spaces. Well, it makes sense because it is Simic. So the idea that they'd have weird experiments going odd. Carrion crawlers might not be unrealistic to have up there, but they're stupid. So they might occasionally fall from an island and just land down below and then start creeping around down there. So that's a lot of random shit. So I'm okay with that. And the Invisible Stalkers could be creeping up here. The carrion crawlers could be creeping down here. These two could be interacting or they might not. So we'll see as this evolves, we'll see if these things are interacting with each other or not. So let's go down to our enchantments. Fifth level, we're going to roll a 2d6. Okay, so 2d6. It's a 5. It's moderate. And then 2d6 here. We got a 4. Equals 6 equals modern enchantment, which means that there could be like a saving throw or an effect that happens every 2 hours. On the ground, there's a mild effect, which could happen every 5 hours, whatever it is. Once enchantments have a source, the enchantment affects the whole tile as like a global enchantment, right? Like in MTG games, it's just a global enchantment that's modifying the game. If you can find the source of the enchantment, you can deactivate it. The skill check would be a DC 13. And for up here, a modern enchantment has a DC 16, and you have to succeed twice with DC 16 to shut it down. You can also use mana. You can spend mana to interact with the object. So whether your character or everyone contribute, like 4 characters contribute 1 point each, or 1 character puts in 4 points. But if the enchantment can be interacted and manipulated, it requires 4 mana to do so, or if it's a mild enchantment, It requires 2 mana to do so, and the skill check to be able to interact with it. Or if you want to attempt to shut it down, you can make the ability checks, and if you fail an ability check, you can instead spend 4 mana to deactivate it. So having an enchantment inside of a dungeon is a great idea, because it forces the characters to think, you know, how much mana do we want to hold on to if we want to deactivate the enchantment. So that's worth considering. So now let's look at, yeah, here we go. Disabling enchantments. Cannot move a caravan into an area with an active enchantment. Enchantments originate within a dungeon, so we'll have to have a dungeon. Must defeat the dungeon and either burn the mana or succeed a skill challenge to disable the enchantment. Must burn an amount of mana determined by the severity, which is 4 or 2 here. Mana must be devoted to the same color as the enchantment. So down here, all right, we're in our last 20 minutes now. On the ground is going to be a red enchantment, so we have to spend 2 red mana. Or in the sky, a moderate enchantment requires 4, and it'll be 4 blue or green mana. And then since this is in Azet territory, it wouldn't just have to be red, it would be 2 mana of either blue or red. So that's how we shut those enchantments down. And let's see, enchantment, let's see. Cannot move a caravan into an area with an active hostile enchantment. Hostile enchantment. That's important, because there's an enchantment active in the first tile that the team moved into, but the enchantment is a wind wall effect that allows fast travel around the region if you're in the slipstream of the airflow. It moves you basically 50 miles per hour from one area to another, so it takes no time to move in the circuit around the area. It's like a quick travel sort of button that you can press, as long as you can fly or coast, like glide. If you can glide or fly, you can use the quick route air system, and since that's not hostile to the team, you can make use of it. So let's figure out what these enchantments are. So let's look at the Azet first. This is a D6. Number 5, Cindervine. When characters are targeted by a spell or effect, deal extra power die of damage. So at CR, the characters are at 5th level right now, which means they're going to be dealing with basically CR 2 to 5. And that is 2nd rank, which means it's going to be an extra D6 damage. So whenever a target gets targeted by a spell or something, or hit with like a strike power, it's going to deal an extra die of damage. So Cindervine. Equals monsters deal extra power die, extra D6 damage. And let's see what the other effect is, which is blue. 3. Aquatic Incursion. Blue monsters are amphibious and hexproof. Hexproof means that you cannot target them with spell effects. Let's go look at hexproof specifically so we can look at the rules. I believe hexproof is a reaction. Reactions. Hexproof. As a reaction to when a creature you can see targets you with a spell or magical effect, you are unaffected by it, wasting the spell or effect. So basically, every creature has hexproof if they choose to use their reaction that way. That's brutal. Hey, Ross. Let's see. Aquatic Incursion. Red equals blue equals Aquatic Incursion. Blue monsters are amphibious and hexproof. So that would, this might not be an appropriate result since the terrain is Azet, which is blue and red mix. So again, just backtracking here real quick. When we're looking at the terrain here, the actual crawl that we're in, we already dealt with the elevated blue, which was Azorius in the sky, and on the ground it was Simic, which is blue-green on the ground, and it was white and blue in the sky. So there's sky islands with sky bridges, a sphinx, and some pixies the team was messing around at the top side. And then down on the level, basically it's a flooded plain with sinkholes that basically become like aquatic layers where various Krasis were hiding inside of. The team decided to traverse down Catty Corner to the southwest to explore the next hex, or next tile of land, which we see here. There's Izet Red, elevated space, or rather flatland over here, and then there's elevated blue over here. So we've been randomizing that the surface level is going to bleed out of the Izet land here into this area. So the ground is steam vents, and then the elevated terrain is aristocratic skyways, which we then leaned into Simic. So it's like it's a very posh region of Simic society, like high-end surgeons, geneticists, researchers, libraries, stuff like that. So we're brewing up the different types of potential enchantments that might be lingering in the area that have gone rogue, that become hostile things. So while that enchantment is in effect, the creatures are affected by these things. The source of the enchantment, it's like a nexus that's inside of a dungeon. So if you want to turn off the enchantment effect, you delve into the dungeon and then use either mana or a skill check to shut down that rogue magic. And then the effect goes away and it becomes a safer area for your team to traverse. So these are very mild effects. So Cindervine, Aquatic Incursion. I don't think we're going to be using the Aquatic Incursions here, but I love the idea of hexproof. So I might steal and blend these two together. But let's see, because there's no specific rules. We're just making these things. These are all just rules for inspiration. So let's roll again on the D6 for the blue. I rolled a 1. Ancient Runes. When you sustain a mana effect, take 1 power die of damage. And then rank equals mana tapped. Oh, okay, so the type of power die you take equals the amount of mana that you currently have tapped. So you can sustain magical effects on yourself using the power system that we have. Sustained effects are like concentration spells that you can maintain on yourself, except that you don't have to maintain concentration on them. They're just things that you spend mana and they turn on, and they stay on until you take a rest, or it's dispelled, or you're incapacitated. So sustained effects, and we're going with a 5th level playtest and using the half casting progression system. We have access to 2nd rank powers, which means you can tap up to 2 mana for a 2nd rank power, or you can tap 2 mana for 2 1st rank sustained effects. So you can stack them. At 17th level, you can have up to 5 mana sustained at once, which then allows you to like 5 1st rank powers, or like a 3rd rank and a 2nd rank power, however you want to blend it. If you're a multi-classer that has access to spellcasting, however many ranks of power you have tapped, that reduces the amount of spells that you can sustain concentration on. So like, if I'm a 17th level 17th level ranger and I want to sustain, say, Swift Quiver, that's a 5th level spell. I can't have any powers sustained if I want to activate and then concentrate on Swift Quiver. If instead I wanted to have, like, say, 2 1st rank powers active, that ranger would be able to concentrate on a 3rd level spell or less, which we've spelled out in the spellcasting rules. And all the spellcasting rules, of course, are linked down here in the color mana spell point variant rules that are on DMsGuild. There's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different books that I've created so far that are all bundled at like 35% off, and like half of them are pay what you want. So check all that stuff out to see how the color mana system works if anyone is interested. And so let's see, we've got the, what did we roll? We rolled a 1 in the Ancient Runes. Oh, that was, I shouldn't have done Ancient Runes. It's Simic, that's what I should have done. 1, green, Germination. When creatures die, a sap-rolling plant creature is created. So anytime you kill a creature, basically spores rise up out of it and create a new creature. So you have to double tap everything. I kind of like that. So germination, that kind of jives with the carrion crawler. That might explain why there's so many fucking carrion crawlers up in the sky, even though it makes no sense that you'd have carrion crawlers in the sky. The germination actually makes it make sense. So I like that. I like that random stuff can create its own answers. And I'll just look at blue in the sky is Halcyon. I rolled a 2. Halcyon Glaze. All monsters have a mirror image effect that can be dispelled. Holy shit. Okay. Okay, I'm starting to get. So what we'll end up doing is we're going to take chunks of all of this, and we're going to blend it into a specific narrative. Like whenever you kill a creature, a carrion crawler spawns out of it. It'll first show up as a 0 hit die pest, but if it's allowed to feed, it'll continue to grow. Like a wither bloom pest from Strixhaven, like these little mookie things that if you kill them, you get a hit point back. Super cool. But if you let those pests go, they grow out and they become carrion crawlers. So that would explain why there's carrion crawlers in these sky islands where there normally wouldn't be any. It's a Simic experiment that's been neglected for 300 years, and this is what happens when you do that. So that makes sense. And then we have our enchantment effects here on the ground. Cindervine, monsters deal extra d6 damage. Like that could be like the extra d6, like the magmen that are coming out of the steam vents that are in this territory. They could do like an extra d6 fire damage, for instance. So they're going to be extra dangerous because they're going to be dealing extra dice of damage until you can shut down that enchantment. So, and then the blue incursion. I like the hexproof. I like that. So I'm going to end up blending these together. So let's see, blended equals magmen have extra d6 fire damage and hexproof. Invisible stalkers. Is there anything about the invisible? No, the invisible stalkers are going to be just bad news on their own. They're basically living illusions. So let's see. The outcast artificer can project invisible stalker illusions of itself. Like spammable Echo Knight familiars. There you go. So they won't necessarily be invisible, but they'll be illusions. And so if it's an illusion, you have to be able to target it. Having it be hexproof would basically make it indestructible, which is unfair for 5th and 6th level characters. So we're going to first you'll be able to see them. They can turn. They have vanish. So if we go back and look at our kit, I'm just kind of freewheeling and building ideas like what are cool challenges that the team would have to face. So if we go down and look at Vanish, I think we still call it Vanish. There it is. Vanish is a first rank maneuver, which means a character would be able to use it as an action or a bonus action to trigger. Costs 1 mana to use it. Is that right? 1 mana Vanish. You become invisible until the beginning of your next turn. So invisible stalkers can basically use Vanish at will. But, and we'll give it the caveat. This mana power doesn't have any caveats about losing invisible. So you can attack while you're invisible with this. But we're going to put a caveat on the invisible stalkers. They have Vanish until hostile action. So they have to use action economy each round to turn invisible again. And then if they just pop out again and become visible, they're going to lose their advantage on that. So that's a thing. I'm going to create some more space between these. Let's see. So now we're looking at we're going to look at the ground filling again. I'm going to have maybe a 3-hour session tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Seattle time or noon East Coast USA time that we're going to continue building this stuff out and basically fleshing this entire this entire hex out. But for now, let's see where we are at. Overland map, second tile. Let's blip out the overland map for now, and let's get back into our land tile. So here's some of the terrain that we're dealing with. We're looking at Simic. I don't like this pyramid structure now that we're thinking Simic instead of Orzhov. So let's think about this a bit more. So we're going to have the land and we're going to have the sky. So we know the configuration for each of these. This is the land tile and this is the sky tile. This is the configuration. We use these different 5-room dungeon configurations to determine where the interesting points inside of the hex spaces. I mean, it's a square, but whatever. So it's a 10-mile space or a 10-mile tile the team is attempting to conquer so that it can become secure. And then again, we're escorting a caravan of non-combatant NPCs from a plane wreck through the rubble belt to try to find a way out and save them. So the team scouts ahead into a hex, does all the adventuring combat stuff to make that place secure. And once that area is secured, they can move the caravan into that, and that becomes their new base of operation. And then from there, they can pick another tile and go attack that tile. At level 3 and 4 in their first playtest back in April and May, the team took on a Simic and Azorius land tile, defeated it, cleared out a bunch of Krasis on the ground, gained an ally as an Azet research sphinx that's in the Sky Islands in that first tile. And now that they've befriended it, they can use that tile as a base of operations, and they can take resources and gear to the Sphinx, and it can build new technology. It can build magic items for the team, and eventually it might even be able to build a communication crystal, like a sending stone, so they can call for rescue. And that rescue ship could either crash as well and get stranded there to repopulate the team, and to add to the caravan that needs rescue, or it just rescues them, because the playtest is only going to level 10. So here in this grid space, we're going to do a D10 and then a D10. And we're going to find the coordinated position for the land tile. So that's what we're starting with, a 3 across and 9 down. So we're going to put one of the nodes here. And then we'll do it again. We rolled a 7 across and 2 down here. And basically, we're going to make the 5 points, and then we're going to connect the points with this sort of a pattern. So even though it's not going to be a perfect diamond like this, here, those connections will exist. And these connections are worn pathways, like easy paths. But you'll be able to, on the ground, be able to traverse the entire space. It's just that unless you're on these determined paths, the CR and the frequency of combat and challenges is going to increase because it's just wild terrain. So, continuing on, 6 across, 7 down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's another one. So like we're already seeing that pattern appearing. So let's see how the rest of it ends out. 8 across and 8 down. So here, see, you can see the pattern here is already starting to form. And then the last one is 7 by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 9, 8, 7. There. Interesting. Okay, and so how's our array look? Like this. So we connect all the exteriors, and then we connect the interior with 3 of them. Let's do that and that. We'll do it this way. We're gonna break rules. Here, here, and here. Let's not. Let's just do it like this. Let's separate those. So that's the ground configuration. And then Get out of here, scallywag. Copy, paste. And then we're going to do the Skyway. I'm almost out of time for today, but we're going to be back tomorrow for another 3 hours, and we're going to really just dig into this. And then the playtesting for this is going to be Monday night on our session 0 for building characters and setting rules for engagement. That'll be on the 29th, and we'll begin actual playtesting for level 5 and 6 on August 5th, and it should run through the 4 weeks, up to 4 to 6 weeks. We have a little bit of fudge time. This one is going to be 5 by 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's the first one. 2 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And then number 3 is going to be a 6 and 4. 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4 is here. Make that fit inside. Again, each one of these squares is 1 mile. It's a 10 by 10 mile, 10 by 10 tile with each square is 1 mile, which makes it easy for the team to be able to traverse through. So I'm going to finish the pattern, connect them, and then we're going to bounce for the day. So 1 and 2. So that'll be here. And then our last one is going to be a 10 by 3 here. And the pattern of four-way connector with an extender. Okay, well, I mean, that kind of jives, right? Here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here, and then interesting, here to here, and here to here. Oh, perfect. And we'll do it like this. We'll go like this. Here and here. Now, check this out. We go here, and now we're going to overlap them to see if there's anything that coincides. And I can rotate these if I want to see if there's any interesting patterning that would appear if I decide to do that. Looks kind of not quite. Let's try. Derp, 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 derp. Let's take a look at this the other way. So we'll go bump, 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 bump. That. Got some sort of smudger going on out here. Free transform. Thank you. There. Now these things line up. Is there anything that directly corresponds? No. There. Free transform. Good. Okay, so this is how the two are overlapping currently. Interesting. So what we'll do is when we come back tomorrow, we're going to build out the sky terrain, and then we're going to create the environment for the ground, and they'll have separate biomes, but they'll be stacked over each other. Each of these lines in the sky represent bridges that obviously are spanning miles, and since this is a wasteland rubble belt, there's a good chance that a number of these bridges will have collapsed already. So what we might find, like in this instance, if we were to look at this sidewise, this array here, like we could have a sky island here and another sky island over here, and then we've got this point down here right on the ground. We might find that the bridges have collapsed, and this is the point where the bridges coincide. So you could actually, from the ground, use these as on-ramps to get up to these floating islands, so that you would then be able to access the skyways over here by basically rising to these surfaces, or like these bridges here could be collapsed instead. So we'll figure out how that's supposed to process, but this is actually a really great overlap because of that. This is right, like the team is coming in from over here. So the first thing they're going to run into is this cluster. And they'll be able to see, yeah, we can traverse these highways to get into elevated ground. So we can either go highland or we can go low ground. And then they'll decide which path they want to go with, which will determine which things they encounter first. And they're going to have to deal with both of them. So they'll have to figure out how to either befriend, destroy, negotiate, or neutralize the threats at both tiers for them to be able to safely move their caravan of NPCs in so that the NPCs don't get gobbled up while they're there. Meanwhile, the NPCs are over in the Azorius tile that the team has already resolved the crises. They destroyed the crisis community, and they befriended the Izet Sphinx that's basically got command of the Skyways over there. And there's some rogue pixies, but they've pretty much, they have not yet actually neutralized the pixies. So the pixies could be a threat that like won't hurt the team, but could eat resources and take things away to create an ongoing problem for them, which means we might see some bleed over into this tile. But that is all the time I have for today. I'm really excited about building out this land. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And so we'll figure out what the objectives for each of the factions are, how they interact with each other, what kind of unique challenges exist inside of here. And we're just basically going to build a story inside of this 10-mile area that the team has to kind of episodically quantum leap themselves into, figure out how to make that place safe for themselves. And once they do, they can move the characters in. It could take anywhere from 4 to 6 sessions of a 3-hour game period to be able to resolve that. And that's what we're going to be doing in August. So that's all I have the time for now. We're going to be back tomorrow in the morning for a 3-hour stretch to continue building this stuff out. If you think this stuff is cool, like, subscribe, bell icon, notifications, blah, blah, blah. Check out my stuff down below. And I'll add a Discord link once we finish here. So see you guys tomorrow. Thanks all for checking it out.